Your Humanities Half Hour is brought to you by the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.
Welcome to Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry, and today we are learning about the Pacific Islands Development Program. And joining us via Zoom is the Deputy Director, Dr. James Perez Viernes. Dr. James, welcome to the show.
Hafide, Catherine Tiro, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. You're originally from Guam, correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
So maybe you could start us off by telling us a little bit about the Pacific Islands Development Program. And maybe we could start off by throwing in a name that maybe more of our listeners are familiar with, which is the East-West Center. What is the connection there and what is the goal?
Great. So the Pacific Islands Development Program, or PIDP, is a program actually housed in the East-West Center. And folks across the Marianas, whether in Guam or the NMI, are quite acquainted with the East-West Center. East-West Center was founded in 1960 by the United States Congress. We continue to be primarily funded by U.S. Congress. And we were founded as a federally funded nonprofit educational institution. In 1960, it was the vision of Congress at that time that there needed to be a place where the peoples of Asia, the United States, and the Pacific could come together and study together and collaborate professionally in the interest of promoting a more prosperous and peaceful Asia-Pacific region. And so the East-West Center was founded under that goal in 1960, and since then has been a place that funds scholarship for students who are studying in Hawaii, that funds professional development programs for professionals coming to increase their professional skills. And so since 1960 has provided that kind of support. And people of the CNMI and Guam have a long history of coming through the center and studying and learning and collaborating. So the East-West Center is kind of founded as that overarching institution. Today includes several programs, the education program, which provides scholarship support, professional development and leadership programs. We have a research program, and we have PIDP, which serves the needs of Pacific Islands and Pacific Islanders. So that's the East-West Center in a nutshell. And again, long genealogy of leaders and professionals and scholars from Saipan, Tinian, Luta, and Guam who have come through here, and we hope more to come in the years ahead.
I mean, there are really so many programs that you guys are orchestrating, and maybe you could start us off with this Council of Regional Organizations of the Pacific, which I understand is a majority of your work. What is that all about?
Yes. Well, so with the East-West Center being founded in 1960, the Pacific Islands Development Program, or PIDP, was founded in 1980. It was the vision of the then Prime Minister of Fiji, Ratu Sir Komisese Mara, and the vision of then Governor of the state of Hawaii, George Ariyoshi. It was their vision that the East-West Center should be a place that brought the peoples and governments and organizations of the Pacific together, so that they could work together to achieve this idea of regionalism, that as individual island countries, island territories, island commonwealths, whatever we may be politically, that we needed to come together because we would be stronger together as a region, that we had this shared values, shared histories, shared worldviews as island people, that we needed to come together to pursue this idea of regionalism, that the development of our region could only happen together rather than as individuals. So Ratu Mara and Governor Ariyoshi had that vision and founded PIDP to be housed at the East-West Center in 1980. in that time and over the decades that followed, we assumed three different identities. One being a program of the East-West Center to work with other programs across the center to advance the mission of the East-West Center. But number two, our second identity, we are a founding member of the Council of Regional Organizations of the Pacific, or CROP. CROP is a collection of 9 regional organizations spread out across the Pacific. These 9 organizations vary. Some of them have highly technical mandates. For example, your listeners may be familiar with SPREP. This is the Pacific Regional Environmental Program. So they oversee environmental initiatives across the Pacific. There's the Pacific Aviation Safety Office. They oversee aviation safety. So agencies, CROP agencies like that have a very specific technical mission. Other CROP agencies have a far broader mandate. The Pacific Community, which CNMI folks could be very familiar with, or SPC is another one, University of the South Pacific, PIDP. We're all members of this CROP network, and we work together based on our various missions to advance, again, the idea of regionalism. That working together, we can develop as a Pacific people together. So we have that identity as a CROP agency. And the permanent chair of the CROP is the Pacific Islands Forum Secretariat. So in that capacity, we're in a very privileged position because the Pacific Islands Forum is a collection of, it's a body of the heads of government from 18 member countries. So these are the heads of the independent Pacific countries that collaborate on a multilateral scale. And based on the vision of the leaders in the forum and the priorities they identified, that informs the work that the CROP agencies do. And so we work together as a CROP network with the Forum Secretariat as our chair, and we do all things regional. So our CROP identity is quite important. Our third identity is as the Secretariat of the Pacific Islands Conference of Leaders, or as PICL. PICL is also a multilateral body of leaders from the Pacific governments. Unlike the Pacific Forum, though, PICL membership includes the territories as well as the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands and the state of Hawaii. So it's a bit more of an inclusive body that includes the U.S.-affiliated Pacific Islands, including the Northern Marianas, of course. And so we act as their secretariat, we convene them, and we take our guidance on the work that we do from those leaders. So that's just a bit about our three identities that kind of shape the work that we're doing out here. As a CROP agency, I do want to add, we are the only CROP agency based in the United States. We are the only CROP agency based in the Northern Pacific. So we have a very unique opportunity to serve, number one, as kind of a bridge or a conduit between the United States and the rest of the Pacific, because we're the only one based here in the U.S., but also as a bridge and a conduit between the North Pacific and the South Pacific, which, as we know, can tend to be kind of isolated from each other, which is sad because we're all island people. We're all trying to pursue this goal of regionalism. So we're very fortunate to have those three identities, and there's a lot of good overlap there. At the end of the day, we're here to serve the Pacific Islands and the people of those islands.
Wow, you really have a lot on your plate, and I want to give you an opportunity to talk about some of the priorities identified by CROP. But before you do that, how do you take, for example, the concerns or the inputs of the smaller island nations like the CNMI or Guam? What is the method of maybe hearing from them in your work with CROP, where you're really like representing the entire Pacific?
Yeah, it can be challenging. One of the beautiful things about being people of the Pacific is our region is vast. It's big. It's also diverse. You know, while we do have shared value systems and shared histories and shared kind of worldviews as island people, we are also a very diverse people. And so, the needs and desires and ambitions of, say, people in one of the smaller island states like the CNMI or anywhere else in the Pacific versus some of the larger countries may not always be the same. The way that we balance that, though, is really leveraging our relationships and our partnerships, whether they be small island states, small island governments, or community organizations or other crop age organizations. Really finding what is that overlap that transcends the specifics of where we come from, where we're situated in the Pacific. And it sounds like a difficult thing, but surprisingly, sometimes it's a no-brainer. I mean, for example, right now, the leading priority, regardless of political status, from an independent country to a U.S. territory, regardless of the size, whether it's small atoll islands to the large island states like Papua New Guinea or Fiji, regardless of where we are in the Pacific, it's clear that the leading priority is addressing climate change, right? And so we find that commonality that, what are the things we face collectively and how do we work together on that, right? So we try not to focus on the particularities of place, but find what are the big challenges that we're all wrestling with as a region, and how do we focus our energies on that rather than on the differences that separate us. I hope that answers some of your question, but right now, yes, it's climate change. It's diversifying our industries, especially in the wake of COVID, where all of us have been confronted. We've known it for a long time, but no choice but to confront the reality that tourism is not a sustainable industry for our people. It literally stopped overnight as a result of the pandemic. How do we diversify our industries so that we can be more sustainable, whether a pandemic comes or a natural disaster? Some of the priorities are also kind of focusing on people-centered development, right? Development for a long time was looked at as economic development, political development. We develop the infrastructure. Those are great things. But now the tides are changing, that we also must look at development that is people-centered. How can we pursue development through the arts, through environment, through culture, through this broader lens? So our work as a crop agency in particular is kind of focused on that and is guided by what has recently been endorsed as a 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent. And so that really is kind of the guiding star that brings all of it together into something more cohesive.
Great. So could you tell us a little bit more about the strategy? And I mean, I guess 2050 is really not that far away.
Yeah.
3 decades. I mean, that's pretty aggressive. I mean, to be planning that far out. What is the vision in crop right now for the development of the Pacific over these 3 decades?
Well, yes. So, as I mentioned earlier, the crop network is a bit vast and it's very diverse in what we do. We bring that together through what is now has been adopted, the 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent. This goes back several years. I believe in 2019 is where it really took off, where leaders, member country leaders from the Pacific Islands Forum countries got together and said, we need a strategy. We need a collective strategy for the region that is going to serve as our roadmap, our guiding star to where we want to be by the year 2050, right? In our development, whether that be economic development, political development, the development of our regional security, our environmental strategy, this all-encompassing kind of strategy to get us through the next several decades to 2050. Once leaders, mandated that that's what they wanted to do, it really was the governments across the Pacific, the crop agencies, all the different faith-based organizations, civil society organizations that had to come together to start drafting this strategy. When I came on board at PIDP in 2021, it was really I was just kind of thrown into the thick of that, into the work that my colleagues across the region had started many years before. And really was a collaborative and consultative process where everywhere from governments, again, to civil society organizations, faith-based organizations of the youth were consulted. What are the priorities that this strategy should address? What are the concerns? What are the challenges? So through that lengthy process kind of resulted in the drafting of the 2050 strategy, which is available online. A quick search should bring it up. And what that resulted in was a 2050 strategy, which had several thematic areas. Off the top of my head, there was an area, people-centered development. There was environment, climate, and oceans. There was governance and political leadership. So under these thematic areas, what the goals and ambitions were going to be for the region. That strategy was endorsed by leaders, by members of the Pacific Islands Forum in July in Suva, Fiji, at the forum meeting, and further endorsed in September here in Honolulu at the meeting of PICO leaders. So that's important there in that the forum leaders, the leaders of the independent Pacific countries, endorsed this strategy. And then it was further endorsed by PICO, which included at the table the heads of government of the territories of the CNMI of the state of Hawaii. So very proud to report that the CNMI did send one of its representatives who was at that table and adopted this strategy, endorsed it at the very least as again, this guiding star, this roadmap that we should all be following, that we should all be measuring what we do against the strategy itself.
Well, we're chatting today with Dr. James Perez Viernes of the Pacific Islands Development Program, and we'll be back with more after this break.
I Northern Marianas Humanities Council bula guinahanya puri historian Marianas dan kultura. Sinyon soda esisihanan formasyon gi zon mami website nmhcouncil.org pat bisita gi YouTube pat Facebook. Guahaloque diferentes clases leblu na sinya unfan. I Northern Marianas Humanities Council has uzura todo I experiencia tautau.
Welcome back to your Humanities Half Hour. James, when I was preparing for this interview and I went on the website, eastwestcenter.org, and then under departments, you'll find the Pacific Islands Development Program. I was just really blown away by how many online resources you have available about studies, data, strategies, as you said, available on the website, including one called the Pacific Island Report. Could you tell us that, maybe just give us a brief summary of what's available for people who need this kind of information?
Yes, as you mentioned earlier, we're based at the East West Center, which is an educational institution. We partner very closely with the University of Hawaii, which is across the street. And so given that positioning, one of our goals is to provide resources to people. PIDP historically has always produced the Pacific Islands Report, which was daily news briefs from across the region. We are currently in the process of revamping that to bring back not only the daily news briefs, but analysis of the latest issues and news, commentary, podcasts, and other types of programming. So we do have that publication getting revamped and coming back very soon. We also have Oceania research fellows that work with us on the Pacific Drought Knowledge Exchange, creating fact sheets about climate and fire and drought, creating data portals. So there's a lot to come. We encourage people to stay kind of in tune with our website and our social media because one of our goals is to provide quality resources. And we're also open to hearing more from folks out there about the types of research and resources that they want to see coming from us about the Pacific.
Very technical and intellectual stuff going on there at the program, but you also take time for fun. You've got something coming up called Celebrate Micronesia. Is it going to be as cool as it sounds?
Yes. So we operate at very high levels with our prime ministers and presidents and governors and things like that. And that's wonderful work at the policy level. But But we also have a very strong commitment to our Pacific Islander communities, both at home in the Pacific, but in particular our Pacific Islander communities living away from home, whether in the state of Hawaii or in the continental United States. One of the things that we partner with several institutions on is the Celebrate Micronesia Festival. That is coming again in May to be hosted at the Bishop Museum. That's a hybrid event. So our on-the-ground festival features music, performances, food, educational booths, booths from our service providers that are there to serve communities. But also on the periphery of the festival, we offer professional development training for teachers working with our Pacific Islander students. It's really just an amazing day of not only celebrating cultures from across Micronesia, but working as a community to address the challenges that we have when we live away from home. So that's coming up in May. Celebrate Micronesia, and oftentimes we will be planning to offer some of that in a hybrid format for our folks who are not in Hawaii to dial in and listen to some of the discussions, watch some of the performances, and so forth. So the community is very welcome. And again, follow our social media for announcements and details on that.
Great. One of the other things we wanted to give you time to talk about doesn't fall directly under your program, but it's related to a lot of professional development programs made available by the East-West Center. Can you give us some of the highlights there as far as what's available to people?
Yes, both within and outside of PIDP, there are several professional development opportunities. Within PIDP, we work with a lot of educators in the region and in the United States to help give them tools and resources that will help their professional practice be more culturally sustaining for Pacific Islanders. Apart from our program at the East-West Center, there are several professional development programs for professionals working in journalism, working in tourism. The Pacific Islands Development Program will be launching the Pacific Islands Leadership Program, where we will offer a short-term training program for an array of professionals looking at indigenous models of leadership. How do we take our professional practice and what we know from our cultures and create those into leadership models? So all of these leadership programs are shorter term leadership programs, sometimes between anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks, that expose participants to peers within their profession, experts doing the latest research to help them grow professionally and reach that next step in their professional goals and their careers. So there's a lot of that going on. We're very happy again to communicate with folks about that. And in addition to the professional development programs, I do want to say our education program at the East-West Center offers several scholarship opportunities for people who want to pursue master's degrees and doctoral degrees. As I said earlier in the interview, long genealogy of folks from the CNMI receiving some of those scholarships. I know that when I was a scholarship recipient, Mr. James Ariola was here with me. There's my shout out to my friend James there in Saipan, that we studied here. We got our master's degrees. I got my PhD as well, under the various East-West Center scholarship programs. We really encourage our folks from across the Marianas to take a look at the scholarship opportunities and apply. Reach out to me personally. I'm happy to discuss those scholarship opportunities and assist where I can in completing those applications, because the opportunities for study, whether short-term or long-term, whether for a professional certificate or a doctoral degree even, we're here and we want to make sure that our people in the Pacific, and I'm biased, but especially our people in the Marianas, have access to those opportunities. So please reach out to us. We're happy to help.
In your time there with the program, what would you say is the biggest benefit you feel that it's giving to the people, the everyday people of the Marianas, the programs, the many programs that you do? What is the impact you're seeing?
I just really feel very blessed and privileged to be in a position that allows me, that is a position of service. We are a service industry. We are here to serve. And that's a big obligation, but it's also a huge privilege to be able to work with people And the job changes every day. One day you can be working with a prime minister and their team on some kind of high level policy. Other times you're working with very grassroots organizations. And so it changes. So it's a real privilege to work in service to this broad range of people when at the end of the day, regardless of who you're working for, is contributing, even on a small scale, to the advancement of our region and our people as a Pacific people, that I get to work with all kinds of Pacific people, not only those who are from the Marianas like myself, but from all over Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia. And so for me, it's a blessing to be able to do that, but also another blessing and an honor to be able to be one voice at the table, to advocate for our people, knowing what life is like back home, knowing what the needs are, knowing what the desires are, to be able to be that voice where our people previously were not represented. To be able to be at those kinds of tables, to be a voice of, to advocate, it's a real privilege, I think, and an honor.
I guess on the flip side of that question would be, what more do you think we could do to support your efforts, either as individuals or as governments?
Mm-hmm. I think, the best we can all do is to openly communicate with each other. We can only advocate and serve when we're aware of what the needs and desires are. So everybody has a voice. And I think to use that voice to ensure that, when we, people like me, are in these positions of privilege, that we're here, we have a voice informing us on what we should be advocating for. I think that's a very important thing, regardless of who you are or what your title is, or regardless of all of that, to use your voice so that we are being guided in the work that we do. And I think secondly, what I would encourage our people to do, given where we're positioned and our various histories, that to think of ourselves more as part of a larger region, a larger Pacific world, that we are unique and we are special as people of the Marianas. We've got a lot to offer to our fellow Pacific neighbors. We have a lot to learn from them as well. And I think it's been very empowering for me to be in this space of regional work, of regionalism. And I would just encourage our people to think of ourselves as part of a larger Pacific world that contains a lot of promise and empowerment.
Well said. I want to thank you so much for your time today. You are a very busy individual. Any closing thoughts before we go?
Nothing. I just wanted to thank you, Catherine, and to the listeners, and especially to all our folks in the Northern Marianas. It's always an honor to work with you. And so I just wanted to extend, I'm very grateful to all of you. And I'm just looking forward to returning again to the Northern Marianas to work with you all so much more.
Thank you, James. Our guest today has been Dr. James Perez Viernes. He's the Deputy Director of the Pacific Islands Development Program. This has been your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry.
Your Humanities Half Hour is a production of the Northern Marianas Humanities Council, funded in part by the National Endowment for the Humanities. Any views, findings, or recommendations expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily represent those of the National Endowment for the Humanities or the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.